I think he's gotten a lot of positive reaction to this address. It's interesting to look at the rollout of it. We were actually a year to the day yesterday in the United States when the World Health Organization declared that coronavirus was a global pandemic. And on that same day, you saw that American actor and American producer, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, were actually in Australia when they tested positive for coronavirus. Then there were some American athletes who tested positive. And then on that same day, President Trump addressed the nation, said he was closing down borders for non-essential travel with a number of nations, including Europe, areas including Europe. So that, I think, it kind of signifies the progress the United States has made since the pandemic officially really started in the United States. So I think President Biden was very much trying to put across a message of unity and hope, a return to normalcy, which a lot of Americans want to hear. The big news coming out of that was that he'd like all American adults to be eligible for the vaccine by May 1st, but he did very much push this idea of vigilance, still wearing a mask, still social distancing, until really the majority of the population gets vaccinated.
Well, how hopeful was he, and how much hope do you think he instilled in Americans that the vaccine is working?
I think there was quite a bit of cautious optimism when it comes to the vaccine working. Yes, I do believe that, and it sounded like he was very optimistic about the vaccine itself. I think where he gets that cautious tone in is when you see a lot of states in the United States, like Texas, for example, rolling back a lot of restrictions, not having mandatory mask mandates, not requiring businesses to have have customers wear masks. And that's where it gets tricky. So he's telling Americans to be vigilant that we will get back to normal with the vaccine, but they need to continue to put in the work of social distancing and getting vaccinated.
And Julia, earlier in the day, the president signed into law a massive stimulus package. What will this mean for the average American?
Well, the average American, you're going to get those $1,400 stimulus checks. So, a pretty healthy check from the federal government, though originally we heard a lot of talk months ago that, Biden and Democrats were hoping for $2,000 stimulus checks. So a little less than what we originally had thought going into this idea of a second stimulus package. But the idea is meant to boost, the average American's, economic experience, get them to go out and feel more economically confident, go out, spend more maybe, or, have them be more financially comfortable as much as they can be so we can get out of this economic downturn at this point.
Why has the package had very little support from Republicans?
Very little support, very much passed along party lines. I think there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, in passing this legislation, Joe Biden very much reached out to Republicans. Remember, it wasn't Democrats who made the first visit to the White House. It wasn't congressional Democrats, I should say, who made the first visit to the White House when talking about the stimulus package. It was actually that group of very moderate Republicans who came and sat with Joe Biden. But Joe Biden was also torn from, factions within his own party, progressive Democrats who wanted there to be more included in that bill. So I think a lot of Republicans would say, look, there's too many earmarks, too many provisions in the bill that aren't directly related to coronavirus relief. That's what they argue. But I think a lot of this comes down to the partisanship that still exists between Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill.
Now, a big 24 hours for Joe Biden. He's joining leaders of Australia, India and Japan in what's been dubbed the Quad talks. How significant is this?
I think it's very significant, especially at a time when we've seen U.S. relations with China very much deteriorate. You're seeing a lot of these other Pacific nations really reach out to the United States, and the United States reach back to discuss a path forward, because we know that within the next 10 years or maybe even sooner, China is going to become a dominant economic power over the United States. So I think you're seeing these Pacific nations who probably have a closer or more amicable relationship with the United States very much want to get the U.S. in their corner.
Well, a lot is on the agenda for this virtual meeting. What can you tell us about what they're going to be discussing and which issues do you expect to dominate?
Well, I think China will definitely be an issue that will dominate. I think all of these countries, including the United States, like I said before, have have something in common, and that's definitely a concern about China, whether it's military or economic related. So that's definitely going to be an issue. I think you're going to hear more about coronavirus as well. Look, the Pacific and the United States have handled the coronavirus very differently. And actually, it seems like the virus has really hit the United States much more, and the United States has been not able to deal with it as well as Pacific nations. So I think these nations are going to want to really resume as much travel and trade with the United States to really help get the global economy really kick-started.
Julia, always great to get your views. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.